Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Puan Lila. Assalamualaikum, Siti. Lama tak jumpa.
Nice to see Jin here.
Syah. Kami.
We'll be starting in a minute. Once we get to about 60 participants, we'll start. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Trees World Wildlife Day webinar series. Okay, and thank you for joining us again today. We would all like to say a big thank you to Yayasan Bresa for supporting this initiative of trees. My name is Leela, and together with me from Trees is Siti. And we would like to welcome our guest speakers for today, Dr. Chen Pelnyok from the Turtle Conservation Society of Malaysia, and Sanjit Pal Singh, Environmental Awareness and Educational Director from Gaia. I will now pass it over to Siti.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Again for joining us today. So just a quick reminder about what's happening for our Trees Celebrates World Wildlife Day. So we are happy to announce that we'll be running a few competitions. So as we mentioned before, we have a video competition, a drawing competition. So, and then we also have another competition that we just announced on the last webinar, which is the 3D model competition. So during the talk, maybe you get inspired by the speakers and you want to create your own 3D model. So these are the species that the webinar will cover, and these are the animals that you can make your own choice, and then you can create your 3D model of your choice in their natural habitats. So the submission deadline for all three competition will be on March 29th. So some of the regulations, requirements are just one submission per person, which contains the title Discovering Malaysia's Wild Beauty. Everything, the entry is free, but you must make sure that your work is original, and there are two age categories, below 15 and above 15 years old. And then there are prizes to be won. So you will be rewarded for your hard work. So as you can see, you have first prize, second prize, third prize, and also 3 consolation prize. So for each competition, there will be those 3 people who win the top prize and also the consolation prize. So another thing that I would like to remind before we start our webinar is a few rules. So during the webinar, please be respectful of the presenter and other participants. And if you have any question, type your question in the chat box. And always keep your mic on mute. And please, tolong Kak Siti, please help Kak Siti to not scribble or use your pen during the webinar. So that's about it from me. Thank you very much. I'll pass it back to Miss Leela.
Thank you, Siti. And like we said, please really do be respectful of the presenter and put your mics on mute. We would like to introduce our first speaker for today. Dr. Chen is a freshwater turtle researcher and conservationist turned entrepreneur. In 2011, PELF co-founded the Turtle Conservation Society of Malaysia, or TCS in short, a non-governmental organization dedicated to freshwater turtle conservation in Malaysia. The title of her talk today is Freshwater Turtle Conservation in Malaysia, What Works? She will be talking about freshwater turtle ecology and conservation. She will also introduce TCS and their research, conservation, education and community engagement programs with particular emphasis on the community-based conservation project and lessons learned. Some take-home messages include how the public can be a part of the work that they do. I'll now pass it over to Dr. Chen.
Thank you, Alila. Sharing my screen. Let me know whether you can see my screen. Full screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right, let's start. So good evening, guys. My name is Pel, and I co-founded Turtle Conservation Society of Malaysia, or in short, we call our NGO TCS, in 2011. So here's our story. So we started TCS in 2011 to save this critically endangered river terrapin. And these river terrapins, they are only found in 3 countries in the whole world. You can find them in Cambodia, Thailand, and Peninsular Malaysia. It's 2.5 countries. You cannot find them on Borneo. In fact, they are in the top 25 most critically endangered turtles in the whole world. So here's a list of really critically endangered turtles, 28 of them, and here's our friend, the river terrapins. So the adults, so what did they look like? So the adults measure up to 2 feet, 2 kaki, about 62 centimeters, and they weigh up to 36 kilograms, as heavy as a child, like 26 child. The adults are typically herbivorous. They feed on mangrove leaves, shoots, fruits, like this buah berembang that you see on the screen. And they take 20 years to attain sexual maturity. What this means is that they take 20 years before they become an adult, before they can come back to lay eggs. 20 years is a very long time. We human beings, we can have a baby when we are 12, 13, 14 years old. I'm not saying you should, I'm saying we can. Our bodies can take it. But for terrapins, it's 20 years. Very, very long. And unlike sea turtles lay a lot of eggs, right? Each time a green turtle lays about 100 eggs, our river terrapin friends, they only lay between 25 to 35 eggs. That's all. Maximum 43. And they lay one time only in one nesting season. And these eggs will take about 80 to 100 days to hatch to become a hatchling. We don't call them babies, we call them hatchling. So this is what the eggs look like, oblong in shape. So why are they called tuntong in Bahasa Malaysia? Tuntong because we will see, I'll show you a video after this. Each time after the female lays her eggs, she will lift her body and then she will let go. So she will be doing this thumping. Okay, she will make this thumping sound to compact the sand. So let's take a look at the video. Okay, so that's why they are called tuntong in Malay. So they perform multiple ecological roles, but the ones I will talk about today would be these 3 really important ones. Number 1, they keep rivers clean by feeding on dead animal material. So your dead seafood in the river, not clean from plastic bag kind of clean, but clean from dead animals in the river. Number 2, they are very good seed dispersers. So when they eat these fruits that are found in the river, when they defecate, the seeds get planted. So we cannot be planting mangroves in the river all the time, right? So the terrapins are doing it for themselves. And number three, they are in a natural environment. We don't collect them back for incubation. These terrapin eggs will provide nutrients to other wildlife, such as wild boar or monitor lizards. Okay, so these are the things, that ecological roles that they play. However, their contributions are short-lived because these terrapins are threatened by a lot of factors, some natural, some man-made. So first of all, we collect their eggs for consumption. The local villagers have been collecting terrapin eggs as food for decades, so many years. So here's the video. Well, these are not poachers, just want to show you how egg collection is done in the middle of the night. And number two, the use of fishing gear in the river. So we have fishermen, local villagers who put nets and all sorts of fishing gear in the river to catch fish. But sometimes terrapins get caught in this fishing gear. And if you leave them for long, you don't go check on them, they drown. So I want to show you this picture here. So you see this big hook, this huge hook. I'm pretty sure they didn't mean to catch terrapins, but look at this egret here. Even birds that fly get caught in such fishing gear in the river. So I think that's just scary. And number three, habitat destruction. So here I want to show you some pictures. This is one of the river banks in the Kemaman River. Many years ago, we were collecting terrapin eggs from this river bank. These two guys are my friends, Lan and Anwar. So we go up to the river bank, they pitch my tent. Both of them slept in the boat, so I slept in the tent. But after a few years, we have lost the nesting bank. So when sand mining operations take place in the river at the critical terrapin nesting habitat, terrapins have no more place to lay their eggs. So we don't see this happening, but sand mining operations happen all the time in the river. So those are the threats that the terrapins face. Now, so TCS was established to protect and conserve freshwater turtles, in particular the river terrapins, and we do this through a lot of programs. You cannot just be saving a species by doing just, by taking just one route. There are many ways you can do that. So the first program that I initiated in the Kampung Pasir Gajah in Kemaman, was this community-based terrapin conservation program. So I involved these local communities, the local kampung folks, and got them to help protect these terrapins with me. So what we do until now, it's been 11 years, we collect these terrapin eggs from the riverbank. Then we bring all these eggs back into the kampung for incubation. So we don't leave these eggs on the riverbank because it's not safe. Monitor lizards, remember, they will come and eat the eggs. Wild boars, as well as people, human beings, will come and collect the eggs. So we take all these eggs back into the kampung for incubation. And after, remember, 80 to 100 days, they hatch. So we will raise them in the kampung. We will feed them with vegetables, pellets. And then at the end of the year, we will release them into the Kemaman River. So this conservation project, we have been conducting this for 11 years, 2012 to 2021. Here. So sea turtles have a very long nesting season. So you may hear, especially now, when our borders are opening up for tourism activities, you will hear that sea turtles lay eggs from April through October, November. But from our research, we find that river terrapins lay eggs in a season that is as short as 30 days, 1 month. So in 1 month of the year, they lay their eggs, that's it. So you collect however many eggs you can. We also found that these are the eggs that we were able to collect for hatching. Okay, so in total, since we started this in 2012, we have collected about 6,477 eggs. Without this project, all these eggs would have been eaten by the local folks. And also from those eggs, we have hatched them and we have released them into the Kemaman River. So far, we have released close to 3,700 hatchlings. So when we speak with the local folks, they will tell us that, oh, we used to just see the big-headed turtles, the adults. But after we have done this project, now we see the small guys, we see the smaller headed ones, the juveniles. Right, and this is our annual terrapin release events held in the kampong in Kemaman. I would like to invite you guys, once the borders are open, it's safe to travel, follow us on social media and we will announce this. I really hope to see you guys come and join our release event. It's once a year. It's very fun. Right, so this is Pachi Wazir. We cannot talk about terrapin conservation in Kemaman without talking about Pachi Wazir because he's been working with us for 11 years, since 2011. Previously, he was a poacher and then we absorbed him into our conservation project and now he's a terrapin guardian. So here's his story.
Dulu saya selalu ambil telur kat sungai, kita makan ataupun kita jual.
I have always told people that the local villagers who make up Gang Tuntong are the best thing that has happened to our society since we started the project. Most of them were egg collectors previously before they started collaborating with us, but in the past 4 to 5 years, we have seen how their attitudes have changed, and I am really happy to say that they are now our turtle ambassadors. One of the members of our Gang Tuntong, Pak Wazir was originally from a different village. He wasn't born in Kampung Pasir Gajah. So he recently told me that when he first came to the village, he was treated as a nobody because he wasn't from here. But after collaborating with our society, after participating in the good work that we do, in saving river terrapins from becoming extinct, he is now regarded as somebody respected in the village. And this is just a very small example of how a conservation project can impact somebody's life. Imagine if we expand the project, and imagine if we have a bigger scale, and how this conservation project can impact not only certain families but the local community as well.
Kalau dulu zaman saya, orang tak kenal saya. Wazir mana? Tak tahu. Sekarang ni, Wazir mana? Wazir Tutung. Masa pandangan saya, buat projek Tutung ni memang ada kebaikan dia. Kalau dikatakan kalaulah pupus Tutung dekat sungai ni, anak cucu kita macam mana? Apakah mereka akan tahu ada tutung ke atau tidak? Jadi saya yakin benda ni tak perlu lagi kita makan ke, kita jual ke. Pasal kita takut nanti kalau kita makan, kita jual, nanti akan datang tutung ke sungai Kemaman ni akan pupus. Saya memang gembira. Kalau ikut itu saya lah, memang cukup gembira. Mana kalau satu musim je kalau saya tak pergi kat sungai, tak buat projek ni, memang saya kecewa lah. Masa saya memang gembira kerana saya ada menyertai program macam tu, projek macam ini.
Right. In addition to the conservation program, we also conduct research projects because ada orang kata tak kenal maka tak cinta, right? So some of the past research projects that we have conducted was to track their movements in the river during and before and after their nesting season. We have also gone to survey Pahang River and talk to local folks and ask them, have you seen these turtles? Have you seen these terrapins? And we're currently studying the effects of fungi on the hatching success of these eggs. So to date, we have raised close to R1 million in research grants to support our freshwater turtle research and conservation projects. Sometimes we also receive soft shell turtles that are caught in a fishing hook, and we will remove this hook before we release them back into the river. But we cannot be doing all these conservation projects on the ground without also educating the local the students. Well, children, I know these are not exactly children. Children are constitute about 30% of our local population today, but they are 100% of our future leaders, our scientists, and our decision makers, policy makers. So this is why we are very big on education. Even though it's hard to raise funds for education, we will raise the funds. We will go to schools and talk to students about the importance of saving turtles. So these pictures show turtle camps that we organize for year 5 students. They're all 11-year-olds. And I have a short 2-minute video. So to date, we have reached out to more than 15,000 students from 120 turtle camps that we have conducted in the past 10 years.
Iya. Boleh beli barang cendera. Kurang guna ambil plastik. Untuk program yang akan datang, cadangan saya lah. Kita kalau boleh kita awalkan sikit masa tu dalam pukul 12 ke supaya murid-murid boleh berada di sini pada masa yang sesuai lah.
Right. So I have been in the field of conservation long enough to understand that to help save these terrapins from becoming extinct, we cannot just be working with the species. We need to work with the local villagers as well. So then comes our next program, which was initiated in 2011, which I call it the Community Empowerment Program. We started with teaching this local makcik in the kampung how to make DIY lotion, how to make chemical-free soap, with the intention that they would one day use these ideas and turn it into like a business. You know how we have kenduri kawin in the villages, in the kampung, and they usually give out packets of junk food, which we don't eat, right? So when we suggested to them that we could make soap or lotion and to be used as doll gifts, they were very happy with the idea. But they wanted to do sewing. So they wanted to do sewing, so we found a collaborator, and then our partner came in and gifted each of the 20 women a sewing machine each, and they are also enrolled in a year-long creative sewing class, which is ongoing at the moment. And these ladies, when we order merchandise from them, look at this turtle theme batiks that we ordered. We send this cloth fabric to these ladies, and they will help us fashion them into different products like face masks, tote bags, items that you see here, and more on our website. So the first time I paid these ladies upah jahit, one of the ladies, her name is Kak No. Kak No, she held the money in her hands. She kissed it, and then she said, Alhamdulillah, rezeki pertama Kak No. She said that was the first time she got paid for something that she earned the money herself. That was the first time. So I thought that was really empowering. So if you're interested, just to take a look or to buy something from our shop, here's the website. It's in the shop is in our website. So what have we done so far, since the establishment of DCS? We started with 5 men protecting 1 nesting bank in the Kemaman River. 11 years later, today we have 15 terrapin guardians protecting 4 riverbanks. And we have also saved more than 6,400 terrapin eggs from being eaten. And we have released more than 3,600 hatchlings into the river. Without this project, none of this would have happened. So for this conservation effort, I was named the Commonwealth Point of Light for Malaysia in 2018. It is an award given to one person from a Commonwealth country by Queen Elizabeth II herself. But let's not declare victory. There's so much that needs to be done still. We need to intensify our research efforts. We need to intensify our conservation efforts because we don't have much time left. Remember, I said they take 20 years to attain maturity. If we consume their eggs now and there's none left, what do we save after 20 years? There's no more, right? We need to also conduct more turtle camps because we need to shape our children's minds. We want to equip them with knowledge to make the right decisions for our environment. And we want to continue empowering the local communities because to move a community, we all know we should start with the women, right? So here, some of the things that I've learned in the past 17 years of doing this is you need to have passion for your project and your community. What is good for our highways may not be good for long-term conservation projects like this, touch and go. You don't just touch and go into a kampong, make some friends, hi, bye, collect your data and you leave. It doesn't work that way. You need to be passionate about building communities, building relationships. And then, like the orang kampung said, inshallah, everything will happen. Everything will happen. It will take time, but you also need to be willing to work hard year in, year out. It is a lot of work to build relationships. I have taken 11 years, to build this relationship with the kampung folks in Kemaman. And in addition to that, you also need to be skilled in many things, many skill set that you need to have. But you need to work hard. These things don't come to us. Sometimes people see us appearing in newspapers and they say, yeah, so glamorous. No, you don't see these tears, behind the scenes. So be prepared to work hard. I always tell my interns this. You need to persevere. The journey may not be smooth because, you see shit like this. Oh, I'm sorry. You see things like this that shouldn't have happened in the first place, but wipe the tears, continue doing it because it will be worth your time. Cannot stress this enough. Work with the local communities because they are the ones who will be directly impacted by any decisions that we make regarding the environment and the species we are trying to save. Trust the people you work with.
At the beginning, when I had 5 terrapin guardians, people come to me and say, yeah, so and so still collecting terrapin eggs to eat. But I tell them, when I start working with these guys, I trust them. I don't go snooping behind the bags and ask people, hey, is he still eating terrapin eggs? I don't do that. So I choose to work with these guys. So I choose to trust them. So this is very important. Even in the office setting, these days, you need to trust people you work with. This one comes from the CEO of Disney for many years, Bob. Treat others with respect and decency. So even though they're orang kampung and we all know that they probably have not been to places like KL often, but that doesn't mean they don't deserve our respect. They don't deserve us being friends with them. So treat people with respect and decency. And finally, have a vision or direction to guide you. Better still if you can find a mentor, because a mentor is somebody who has been there, done that, right? So we don't have time to make mistakes. Let's just learn from other people's mistakes and build on that, right? Okay, and with that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pal. Such an interesting talk, and my goodness, the amount of work that you've been doing with the community, and it's so great to see that they are, they have really benefited from the project, and the terrapins have also benefited from the project. So we'll start with the questions. There are quite a number of questions waiting to be answered. So the first question is, how long is their lifespan?
Okay. So nobody has really followed them from hatching until they die. So we don't have an exact answer for it. But if I have to guess, I would say they live between 60 and 80 years in the wild. So if they don't get caught in fishing gears, I think they can live between 60 to 80 years.
Wow, that's a long time. Right. Does the river have predators, crocodiles?
Some rivers, yes. But a river like Kemaman is the 3rd longest river in the state of Terengganu. The local folks have never seen a crocodile, but I observed them. They behave as though there are crocodiles in the river. So even if it's just a short boat ride across the river, they wouldn't dangle their feet in the river. They wouldn't. Yeah, but when I asked them, pernah ke jumpa, they call it Abang Ya. Pernah ke jumpa Abang Ya? Tak pernah. But they just behave that way.
I think better to be safe, right? How do they defend themselves?
How do they defend themselves? Well, first of all, when they are an adult, okay, if these terrapins, when they are adult, they are about 2 feet in size. Apart from crocodiles, really, I don't think there are any other predators, natural predators that can prey on them. So it's the juveniles and the hatchlings that we are worried about. But even with people, when you're small, you are really helpless. Right? So that's why we have this head starting program in the kampong where we give them a head start. We raise them for a few months and then we release them. So we don't want to raise them for long. It's really just for them to grow from the size of my palm to like bigger. So hopefully they stay away from larger fish that can eat them.
Next one. The Kemaman River experiences sedimentation and shallow water. Is this a threat to their habitat?
I wouldn't say it is a threat to their habitat. I would say it's a threat to them. So every year after the monsoon, it's like a fresh new blank page. We wouldn't know which nesting bank is good, which ones are no good. So when the terrapins emerge on the nesting bank and then she starts digging a nest like you saw in the short video clip just now, if there are a lot of rotting branches, in the sand, then she would abandon the process and then she would look for another place. So if after the monsoon, the monsoon rains and the monsoon river water brings down a lot of sedimentation or changes the dynamics of the river or bring a lot of branches onto your nesting bank, then the terrapins won't like it, and then they may go to another river bank. Yeah, so I think it's a bigger threat to the terrapins than to the river.
How strong is their bite? How?
Never tried. Okay, so they don't have teeth. Like sea turtles, they have this serrated jaw. Their jaws are like saw. Zigzag, 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 zigzag. Yeah, so they don't have teeth. So I don't want to try. Yeah, I've been bitten by the small hatchlings, young ones. Well, when you get bitten by a small turtle, you just, you retrieve your finger, retrieve your hand. You don't let it bite you, right? But I wouldn't try with the adults. Yeah.
Okay. So we shouldn't try it either, I think.
No.
How can they participate in your program?
Oh, okay. What you saw just now, the terrapins lay eggs only for a month. That's 30 days. And we take interns. You can apply to join us as an intern. But you got to stay with us at least 1 month, because when I take student interns, we want to teach them a lot of things. It is also a moral responsibility, because you come here to learn from us, right? I cannot let you not learn much and then leave. So it is also a responsibility. So I think I will take about a month to show you the work that we do, and then slowly let go and let you take up some responsibilities. So if you have at least 1 month to spare, write to us. We will need help throughout the year, except during the monsoon months. Yeah, so you go to our website, sign up as an intern. There's a form. You just fill up the form and we'll get back to you.
Okay, it sounds pretty easy. Right. Are turtles listed as protected species in the peninsula?
Yes. The river terrapins, in fact, there are 18 different types of freshwater turtles and tortoises, tuntong and kura-kura in Malaysia. All of them are protected. But the river terrapin is listed as a totally protected species under the Malaysian Wildlife Conservation Act 2010. So what this means is that we will need a permit khas, a special permit from Jabatan Perkhidmatan to conduct the work that we are doing now. And we need to renew the permit every year. So nobody should have in their possession terrapin eggs or the hatchlings or the adults, the females or the males. You cannot keep them. So yes, they are totally protected.
Good. This is a very long question, Pelf.
Oh.
Hi, Dr. Pelf. I'm intrigued and fascinated by your work to conserve freshwater turtles, since terrapins are reptiles and their incubation temperature will influence the gender of these hatchlings. Will keeping the eggs of terrapin at certain temperatures for more male turtles to hatch one of the solutions for climate change, as climate change will affect genetic diversity of these turtles, where there will be more female than male turtles due to increase in temperature. Also, can undergrad students participate in your research projects on terrapins?
Yeah,
so 2 questions.
Yeah, I'll answer this second one first. Yes, please.
Yes.
So I'm pretty sure you are with a university, Jensen. I'm pretty sure you are with a university. So check with your supervisor. I'm very happy to co-supervise research projects with the terrapins, because we really don't know much about them. Unlike sea turtles, like let's say green turtles, they are found in 80 countries in the world. So many other people doing research work on green turtles. But these river terrapins, remember I say 2.5 countries in the world. So we need more students step up and collaborating with us to study them, to do research on the ecology or biology of the terrapins. So write to us, okay? And your first part, yes, just like sea turtles, the gender of the hatchlings is determined by the incubation temperature, meaning if you incubate the eggs under the hot sun, you will produce 100% females. If you put the eggs in the sand in a box in your office, which is air conditioned, then you will produce 100% males. Okay, so that also takes us to climate change, global warming. If we don't remove the eggs from the nesting bank and just leave it there because people say natural is best, right? So we may be producing 100% female. And one way to remember this is hot babes, cool guys, higher temperatures, warmer, hot, you will produce the babes, the girls, the females. Yeah, cooler temperatures, you will produce the males. And we found this in 2004, many years ago. But yes, there are still a long list of research priorities, you know, because you want to move towards one direction to saving these turtles from becoming extinct. So there are still a lot of research that needs to be done, in particular genetics, population genetics, paternity, you know, do they come from how many fathers, right? So a lot of potential for research. So yeah, right to us.
All right. Any more questions, or we'll start? We'll give Dr. Pelf a break, and if there are any more questions, we can answer them after the second speaker. All right. So thank you so much, Pel, for such an interesting talk. I've learned a lot as well, and I hope to come to your place one of these days and take part as well. But I don't think I can stay for a month. I'm sorry. Right. And so thank you again, Pelf. And we're now very happy to introduce our second speaker for today, Sanjit Pal Singh, who is the Environmental Awareness and Educational Director of Gaia. Sanjit Pal Singh is a multi-international award-winning nature, wildlife, and conservation photographer from Malaysia. And the title of his talk today is Beyond the Image. On the trail to visually document Malaysian wildlife species, Sanjit collaborates with various partners to provide high-quality images. Apart from various usages, Sanjit aims to capture unseen before behaviors, contributing back to the progressive world of scientific research. Over to you, Sanjit.
Wow, thank you so much, Leela. I hope everyone's doing great out there, and Pelf, I'll remember, you know, hot babes, cool guys. I'm going to start by just sharing my screen. Let me know if everything is okay. Can we see the visuals on the screen? I think so. Can I get a response, please?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, give me a minute. Here we go.
Okay,
now we do. All right. So Malaysia's wild beauty. Wow. When I started off with that title, I thought of showing all the beautiful pictures that we've taken throughout Malaysia and how they have been seen as something new or a new behavior. But looking at this right now, this very last minute, you know, it's just kind of like a projection of how perhaps grim our future could be. However, it is also a representation of how much love there is still in this country. And there's a lot of things that we can learn from nature and wildlife, and especially all kinds of wildlife species that's out there. The best thing about being a photographer is that not only that we get to experience being out there in the real world environments, but we also get opportunities such as these to tell our stories and the representations of how others or anyone could perceive the images. Firstly, you know, it's beautiful to be in a country that is so blessed with so much of nature and wildlife. You know, it's like And trust me, I mean, if you are intending to start this kind of trade and trying to figure out how you can contribute back to the future, not only for yourself, but to the environment and societies as a whole, think about starting somewhere very close to home. And that's the greatest thing about being in Malaysia. You know, we are surrounded by so much beauty, and sometimes it does not need to take you an entire week of a trip or entire month excursion to find the simple places. This was taken just in Selangor, and which is not too far away. It's about an hour drive from. I live in the city in KL, right? So it's about an hour drive from there. You get amazing and beautiful scenes all around. Uh, What else is there can I say about this? Let's move on to the next picture. Here's a crested goshawk. I always have trouble saying that. Crested goshawk. And it seems that recently a lot of wildlife species have been spotted in the city. This image too was taken not too far away from the city area. And they seem to be coming closer to the city. So there are a lot of green lungs within Kuala Lumpur city that I have recently been going out and discovering various kinds of species that are in this green lungs. As important as the green lungs are to us, it is equally and even more important to all the species that is there. So I know there are a few young ones out there that has asked me this kind of questions. Where do I start? How can I go? Where do I go? Just a couple of pointers, you know, don't look too far yet, because there's so many things that you can discover, those that are close to you. There seems to be a lot of primates in the city as well. And this white-eyed ceruli, is also found within the vicinity of Kuala Lumpur. I first heard about this a couple of years ago, where there was a newspaper article published, and I think it also mentioned there were a couple of oriental pied hornbills in the city as well, which is great. We've seen a lot of online content being published about them. I've not seen it personally yet, but during one of my excursions, discovering the green lungs, which are not too far away from where I live, we get to see wildlife such as this, and kindly be informed that these sort of primates, they are very, very skittish. Although they are found in the city, they truly are, they do shy away from humans a lot. All right, so that is my city life, and here comes my jungle life. Whenever we go out for excursions, I am a photographer first, and I've been photographing for close or maybe even 20 years now. And what I try to do is that I try to document behaviors of all kinds of wildlife species. And from that documentation, either is done on pictures or videos, I give it back to the NGOs or the social enterprises that work with the species. It could be elephants, it could be frogs, it could be birds, it could be any sort of wildlife species out there. As long as I've managed to capture a good image of a particular behavior, in which is something that we cannot direct while we're in the wild, these images are contributed back to the researchers and the societies and the NGOs that conduct this kind of research. And it is very important to them, not only as visual content, apart from boring graphs and charts on their reports, although it makes it prettier, but you actually get tangible proof of the behavior itself. So if you see here, I usually have a 2-camera setup, and that is a lot to carry. It weighs a ton on your back, especially when you're hiking for long distances. And none of these images that you're going to see from the following slides alone were done alone. You know, it took a lot of people. There were a lot of people involved when we went out for research and documenting wildlife. You know, it's working together and collaborating together with communities that these images were possible. And these images were also, of course, contributed back as part of research. So in case you're wondering, the camera on the right, it's just purely for photography, and the camera on the left is purely for just taking videos And occasionally I need the reach and I can't carry more gear, so I just swap the camera bodies around, and then you get different angles or different focal length in the images that you're going to see later. So always idealistic I am. This is actually something that I did not know that I had in my archives, and it actually shows that on the left is the first day of the excursion, on the right was the last day of the excursion. So on the first day, we are always very hopeful, we are always filled with energy, and we just want to go out there and do our job. And during this particular excursion, it was a one-way ticket that we purchased to Borneo. And we were trying to document nesting birds, right? So we did not know when the fledging would happen or what's going to happen next. So hence that one-way ticket. Day 44, day 45, that's me on the right. I seem to have lost some weight. However, I grew a very, very big beard. So it kind of balanced out the contra. But what really happens to me within that 44 or even more days is that I like to be alone in the forest. Of course, team members are around, they're not too far away. They're all pretty much nearby. And I realized that I had this one particular water bottle that I carried with me throughout the trip daily. We left the forest daily because we had access to a nearby village to charge the camera gear, to get our reports and data in order, to cook, have a good meal, have a good shower, refill our water bottles. So I guess it was one of the teammates that managed to capture me as though I was talking to this water bottle and saying, thank you for sticking with me for 44 days and I'm taking you home with me, which eventually got recycled. So that is part of how I particularly look in the forest. And if you do see something or someone walking around with a huge beard in the forest, it might just be me. Right. So being in the forest for so long, sometimes opportunities present themselves to you. It's not every time that you can go out and hunt something. And when you're quiet enough and you have become accustomed to the area, and you would realize that every single movement could mean something or could mean that something is about to happen. This particular one was taken also in Borneo, and I did see some rustling going around, and I pointed my camera to this huge tree with a huge palm growing on it. There was a raptor that just hung suspended with something in his talons. It's balanced himself so wisely that it kept hunting, and it was looking into the fronds of the palm, and it was still hunting. The most amazing thing here is that it is actually latching on to a vine. I've never seen raptors hunt this way. And this is the type of images that goes back to contribute to the world of science. I've seen them locking claws mid-air suspended, but for it to hunt this way, it was new to me. So I sent these pictures to the NGOs within that area, and they were quite happy about it, and they're looking into it. Occasionally, we tend to rediscover species that has been believed to be not in that area anymore. This could be a very small misconception because we are not there in that area for a long period of time. And in this particular area, we did not have a lot of camera traps that's pointing all around the forest to see what's around the area. Also, what we realized when I'm there for the second time, and this time it was an over 40-day excursion, this langur was over 30 meters high up in the canopy. And this is a Shorea paucifolia tree, and it was feeding on this orchid species that is captioned, which is just right here at the bottom left of my screen. Knowing that there were rangers there, there's work they're in that area for over 20 years. Some of them has only seen it twice. And fortunately for me, in 2017 and in 2019 when we were there, in 2017 I managed to see a small group of 3, and in 2019 a small group of 5 or 6 with young. So this could mean that the population is still around and they are well and happy, or the population is expanding. Of course, images like this is given back to the NGOs that is around there. I mean, I sound like such a disclaimer, but it is true. And it's such exciting moments when they go like, oh my goodness, it is still there. This is a comeback to science. While sitting around in the forest, this is one of the guys that actually took over one of the hornbill nest boxes. But I never did document their feeding behavior, and I never knew that they fed on vines and shoots, and some of them even ficus shoots. But we know that these are the red giant flying squirrels, and it was so difficult for me to get a shot of it in flight because they just tend to zoom very, very quickly right above you. But we managed to discover that they were nesting in a hollow not too far away from us. And every time they took flight, it was an amazing feat. And what happened was, within that over 40 day of excursion, there was this one particular week that the activities has reduced, until one day the female took flight and we realized there could be chicks in the hollow that is not too far away from where we were placed. So we, as a team, made a little agreement not to go too close to this tree and disturb its young nestlings. Also in the forest, I mean, yeah, we do get a lot of insects. And this particular one is lantern bug that I managed to capture with just only a headlamp and a macro lens. I don't think I even had a tripod at that time, but sometimes with just the simplest of camera equipment, you do get amazing pictures of some really colorful and amazing insects that are out there. Snakes is something I don't really dabble with because I don't have much experience. But the thing with collaborating with experts in the field is that they are able to advise you on how close you can go, what is their striking range, what is the snake feeling at that time, whether is it feeding, has it just fed, what if it's behavior, how does he change his behavior very so slightly with every single movement. For this one, the viper was so calm and it didn't seem to be bothered by us. Of course, we did not take too much time with it. And even this ant was having a field day just walking all around the viper. There's an ant on the left side of the viper. So of course we were on a mission and we did not want to use a lot of time photographing just one particular viper, and we had to go somewhere at the time. I think it was about to rain and we were rushing out. One thing I do not enjoy is using flash photography for wildlife species, especially those that could be nocturnal. So this one was done particularly with just some wrapped up tissue papers and wrapped it up with socks, and we just put it in our headlamp and we just started oil painting it like. So that's how this shot was taken. Of course, it was done with a tripod. It was so much fun, and I would like to work with more snakes, but these are just some of the dangers that we need to be aware of whenever we are in the forest. Of course, there are other dangers in the forest as well. Some of them, actually most of them, they're not bothered by you. They're just bothered when you come too close to their territory. And a lot of animals, they actually warn you before you get too close. They would make a sound, they would produce a gesture to give you a warning signal saying that, hey, you're coming too close to my terrain. What happened here was I was too close to its terrain. There's a ravine behind me, a cliff to my left. The orangutan was right in front of me, and on my right, 2 feet away, it's a limestone drop. So I was trapped, and I tried to hide behind my camera. and try to take pictures of this orangutan just staring down at me. It got so close that the focal range, I mean, I could not focus anymore because it was just too close. Interestingly, being in that area that I've worked with other NGOs for so long, when I'm not behind the camera, the orangutan is all right with me. It recognizes my facial features. But as soon as I get behind the viewfinder to try to lock a focus, it tends to get a little bit more aggressive. So I was in a situation where I was trapped. Like I mentioned early on, I like to be alone, somewhere in the forest, not too far away from my team members. But at this time, I could not risk making a sound or making a sudden movement, because not only it could risk myself, but also this male was protecting his female that just had a young. So eventually, I stepped back from the camera. It's like I was just praying to dear Lord. It's like I can't lose the camera right now. We only had a one-way ticket, and the orangutan was cool, and he went away. Of course, this kind of behavior is not encouraged, and from that day onwards, I stuck with my team members just in case. At other times, while we're in the forest, we do encounter other kinds of dangers, such as large mammals and elephants. And truth be told, these are the largest living land mammals. But they are so silent in the forest. They could walk 2 feet right behind you and you might not even realize it. But of course, I do have this one rule of thumb, it's like always, if there's elephants nearby, I always want to get good shots of it. I always want to get greater shots of elephants nearby. And, it's like even if I need to change lenses and stop, I would do that. So I carry 2 cameras instead. I carry more than 1 camera now, just in case these kind of opportunities arise. But there's one thing that we need to always be aware of, is that our surroundings, not only that there are wildlife on the floor, there could be important plant species on the forest floor as well that you do not want to accidentally trample. Not only that, above you there could be birds, there could be orangutans. If it's a windy day, if it's going to rain or going to storm, there could be something that's going to fall on you, and you need to be aware of all the situations at all current times while you are in the forest. So the elephants and the team, we parted ways in a peaceful manner, and we climbed up to a hill, and we just noticed and we just witnessed the elephants walk away and feed along their way as they intend to do. It just shows that sometimes our presence, our human presence in the forest or in the wild, we're just in their way. Not every time we get the pictures that we want to, and sometimes during excursions for us, or for me in particular, is a minimum of 2 weeks until well, there's no deadline for excursions until I guess until the mission has been fulfilled. But not all the time you are able to take the images that you want to. I mean, the one thing that I've learned in the 20 years of being a photographer is that disappointment will become a norm. There will be days, there'll be weeks that's just going to rain on you, and you won't be able to head out, or you won't be able to head back. Right? The weather could be such an amazing factor that it might deter you from continuing on with your work. And one thing we need to remember is that the rainforest canopy can be so dense that wildlife within it, they are always in the shadow. Although we don't get the perfect shot all the time, we need to have hope, have faith, go back there with the intention to be better. Only that way we become better photographers, and as better photographers, we can better help the communities, whether it's the local community or the scientific community that we are documenting these wildlife species for. Bats. flying foxes. I never knew that I would actually fall in love with bats and flying foxes. In which, while collaborating with NGOs, I think this was a collaboration with Rimba, that going on excursion with them, I spent the entire day just watching bats and flying foxes and photographing them, trying to figure out the best angle, trying to have a feel through just visually watching their behavior. And I recently got this question as well, and I thought I would just answer it here through this slide, is that how do you reach out to NGOs to go and do what I keep doing? One of it is to get published, and getting published internationally is sometimes not an easy feat. Your first step could be or should be to go out there and see where you want your works to be published at. And secondly, who can you collaborate with? Because they might know some of the editors that are willing to publish their works in collaboration with yours. So I'm just trying to piece the puzzles and paint you the picture of how photography works together in this immense, this huge world of conservation and research. Recently, I've been doing a lot of artworks, and a lot of the artworks are going out for charities as well. Some are for conservation charities, some are for community charities. And we've also collaborated with a lounge in Bangsa called Bats. Yeah, it stands for Bar at Talawi Street. There are 5 artworks out there, and upon request of this artwork, a certain percent goes to the communities, to the selected NGOs, and back to the lounge as well. In 2019 and 2020, we had a couple of silent auctions, right? And these silent auctions, one of it was done for an NGO. It was done for an NGO. It was done in conjunction with International Tiger Day, and where the proceeds went back to the NGO for this International Tiger Day and the amazing works that they do. The tiger on the right-hand side of the screen, I hope it's on the right-hand side of the screen for you, we just recently closed the silent auction, and it was going to communities, and these communities in particular are those musicians that are in need of medical attention. Well, I can't live without music. I need to be plugged in. Actually, most of the time when I'm working at home, I'm working on something in front of the computer, I need to have some sort of music. A lot of my friends are musicians as well. And the news has been spreading that because of the MCO, the musicians cannot be playing music, they can't be basking, they can't earn. And a lot of them fell sick in between and could not, sustain a living, or even could not pay their bills. So we collaborated together with Bats Lounge, and to date we've collected close to 20,000 ringgit that has gone to both a social cause and a conservation cause. All right, so yes, I do collaborate with a lot of NGOs out there, but one of which is a social enterprise called Gaia. And I have been photographing the helmeted hornbill with them since the year 2008, as far as I could remember, 2008. And part of what they do is that they also do research in all the other hornbill species that are in Malaysia and that can be found in Malaysia, whether it's in Borneo, Malaysia, or Peninsular Malaysia. So I'm just going to sum it up as Malaysia. So we have the Oriental pied hornbill, in which is one of the most resilient species of hornbills out there. They are the smaller bodied species, and they pair, and they somehow seem to be very, very well adaptable to to areas with humans. So you see a lot of them in Panko, you see a lot of them in Langkawi as well. I mean, these are some of the best places to actually spot them up close and personal. That's one. This is a male. This is a male oriental pied hornbill, and this picture was just taken recently in Langkawi while I was just walking around the streets, and it seemed to have perched quite nearby, and I managed to photograph it just handheld. Sometimes you do get lucky in the forest, sometimes you don't. That's life. Bushy crested hornbills, also one of the smaller bodied hornbills, but the amazing thing about these guys is that they go in flocks. There's always a leader, and they go in flocks. So in this particular scene, you don't see the flock, but the flock that I've witnessed, strangely, are always in odd numbers. It's either 5s or 7s, or sometimes even 11s, never an even number. But that's besides the point. Bushy crested hornbills, another one of the most resilient ones around. So it's really cool to see them flying in flocks. When they stick together, they tend to kind of like shoo predators away very easily. And even when they nest, right, they take turns to feed the female inside. And there's always one out there that's going to play security guard just to shoo away predators if they come along. This image is here seen with a fig. Of course, we've got the black hornbills, and this is also another one of the artworks. And this artwork is currently at the Datai, and the Datai, they are doing this amazing program called the Datai Pledge, which a lot of their contributions are going back to nature, wildlife, going back to conservation, also the societies around them. It's so beautiful to see a lot of corporates stepping up these days and giving back not only their time but also their energy to create new campaigns and new pledges to give back to the environment. So I've donated this image to them, which is going to be sold, and it goes to the pledge as well. Black hornbill, also one of the smaller bodied hornbills that we have in Malaysia. This one here we see is a female. I didn't really put a picture of a male in here, but it's kind of all right. What else? This one looks like he got into a female's purse. It's very, very well made up hornbill, very colorful, and this is the wrinkle hornbill. Throughout my years of photographing hornbills and other wildlife in Malaysia, the wrinkle hornbill, I think the most oftentimes I see them or I hear them or witness them either by sight or by sound is at the Kinabatangan. And Kinabatangan is in the Sandakan side of Sabah. It's a beautiful place for nature and wildlife, for not only for photography but also just for small breaks and excursions if you need to get away from the city. So this wrinkle hornbill had a female nearby, and this one morning that there was a fruiting fig nearby as well, and a lot of hornbills that are concentrated at the fruiting fig, right? So yeah, one tip out there is that whenever we find a fruiting fig, we tend to concentrate our efforts there as photographers, because you'll see a lot of wildlife that come to these fruiting figs to feed on them. White crowned hornbills, I would call them my personal nemesis because they always seem to get away from me. You can always hear them in the distance, or even when you hear them nearby, they spot you first and then they fly out, and you end up not getting a shot. But occasionally you do get lucky. But one time I was just so tired from an excursion that we've been hiking for so many days, and we reached the village, and I put my camera gear down and I fell asleep on the floor. I just basically crashed out. And the team woke me up and said, hey, yeah, let's go for a river cruise. And I go like, I'm just so tired. And kicking and screaming and moaning, they dragged me to the boat. And we went for a river cruise. And in that evening, there were, if I'm not mistaken, 2 pairs of white-crowned hornbills. They were just flying above you, flapping their wings, preening in open branches, showing off only because you don't have a camera with you. So I've learned my lesson. Always take your camera where you go, or don't go on river cruises without a camera. Another beautiful hornbill species that we have here in Malaysia is the wreath hornbill, and it's called the enggang gunung, also because it prefers higher elevation areas. But wreath hornbills and plain pouch hornbills, they're quite similar. The one thing that is missing on the plain pouch hornbill is a little line, the black line on their gullet pouch there. So for you, if you like to witness the plain pouch hornbill, they do migrate, I think, every other year, but it's been quite some time since I followed up. And this happens in the northern part of Peninsular Malaysia. It's a beautiful sight to see a huge flock of birds just going around foraging in the forest before heading back further up north back into Thailand and to do what birds do. Of course, we have the beautiful rhinoceros hornbill. This one is a female that came very close to the ground, and she was hunting for scorpions to supply back to her nest. I only realized that when I photographed her on the 2nd or 3rd day that she was sending scorpions back in the nest, and having my eyes peeled from there on forward, we realized there's just scorpions just walking around us. Fortunately for us, let's face it, most of the times animals are more afraid of us than we are afraid of them, right? Unless they are provoked, they attack. Sometimes they are accidentally provoked because we did not realize that we have disturbed their nest or their home, hence the attack. But we documented this nesting female until I had to leave at that time. I had to head back to the city for other works, but the chick fledged successfully as well. And it was a very healthy chick, which was great. So rhinoceros hornbill is one of the larger of the 3 largest hornbill species that we have in Malaysia. And one thing you need to realize about hornbills is simply their eyelashes. They have amazing eyelashes, don't they? Here's an image of a great hornbill that I recently photographed in Langkawi. And they are just such majestic hornbills, and they make this beautiful sound, this beautiful call. Even when they're flapping above you, I mean, you can hear the wings that just makes you wonder that there's such an amazing bird. And not only that, it's like if you watch birds very closely, you tend to realize that they do have expressions. Not like primates. They have a lot of expressions from their eyes, and you can somehow feel or tell the emotions from their eyes. It's not always easy photographing birds because you can't make them smile, can you? I mean, they have beaks, right? But when you watch their eyes, when you watch the way that they move their shoulders, they're trying to tell you something, right? And one thing that is important about being a wildlife photographer is that you get to study their behavior as you go along. And as you go along, you get to relate back this behavior on what might happen next for you to get the shot. So currently we also, Gaia is also concentrating a lot of work in northern Malaysia. And apart from doing hornbill research and expanding to states like Kedah, we're also expanding to states in Terengganu. So there's going to be fun excursions in future to come. Of course, we have one of the largest one, which is the helmeted hornbill. And this is just one of the most elusive hornbills out there. I can't put to words the emotions, that vibration that you feel in your bones when you hear it call in the forest. It's got such a unique, loud call that when it echoes through the forest, it kind of like passes through you, and you just feel the shiver of it's just electricity. Uh, of course, this is one of the most important birds. I mean, hornbills in general, they're all important birds to the forest, and losing even one species could mean that there's going to be trouble for Malaysian forests. The reason is because when hornbills consume food, they swallow the seeds whole, and they fly long distances, and they deposit the seeds there, and it germinates, right? Compared to primates where they have teeth, and when they chew on fruits, everything gets crushed, so the seed itself might not survive. So yeah, helmeted hornbill, I'm not sure how much time I've taken, but a little bit of story about helmeted hornbill. And it's been one of the species that I've been trying to document for so many years. But first thing is, finding them is the toughest part, right? Finding them is the toughest part. And it's the whole process of finding them involves speaking to communities, involves working together with NGOs, involves collaborating with government departments. And once we found them, we have to document them in as many ways as possible. We do video recordings, we do audio recordings. Of course, a lot of it is done still photography, which is done by me. And once we found a nest, my job is to stare at a hole in a tree for almost for forever. But I honestly enjoy it because I do get to learn a lot from nature and wildlife. But can you imagine that up to, if they nest for a very long time. So one of the longest time was up to 44 days. I was staring at a hole in a tree. But it's like there's so many stories to tell, but it just puts a smile on my face. Okay. So the helmeted hornbill is particularly larger hornbill species, and for obvious reasons, it's called a helmeted hornbill because it's got this amazing casque right in front, and not a lot of it is not a lot of it is elongated like the rhinoceros hornbill. So it's kind of like a flat casque in front, which will be illustrated in the following pictures. Photographing this one helmeted hornbill that I've been documenting for 6 years or more has got a beautiful story to it. So an introduction to how hornbills nest. I'm going to use the helmeted hornbill as an example. Firstly, they need a large natural cavity in a tree to nest in. And when the conditions are right, when the time is right, the female goes into the natural cavity in a tree. And if you can see how large this bird is, and imagine that this is the female that's sealing herself in the cavity of the tree. So the cavity must be pretty deep inside. And this is a naturally formed cavity, and it could have been formed through many years, many ages, many decades, through either sunbeds picking out for food, or even fungal rot, which could have just started from a woodpecker trying to build a nest. So imagine that this female is going to seal herself in and be in there for 5 months or more. Right? The male, his duty is to go out there and look for food. He goes far and wide searching for only the best nutritious figs out there. Right? They are wide range. They cover such a wide range that imagine making trips up to 11 trips in a day just to find the food for his female and his chick. It's a really tiring task. eventually the female comes out of the nest, say after 5 months, and she does partake in the feeding of the chick. So the nest here, as you can see, the hollow is slightly bigger, and just because she has fledged from the nest. So as she partakes in the feeding of the chick, occasionally they bring back insects to give the chick a lot of nutrients that they can get from insects as well. But she plays more of a guardian role. She stays very close to the nest, just to guard the nest and her precious chick, because she's been in there for 5 months, cooped up with, just cooped up in a very cramped space. So she plays a guardian role just to keep her chick safe from any sort of predators that are going to come to consume the chick, right? So at one time, we were observing the nest, and we always like to, it's like try to find fun in the tiring work that we do. So we had this side bet going on. It's like, is the chick going to be a male? Is the chick going to be a female? And eventually that we got so excited that we could see the chick for the first time and how the chick feeds, or how the female feeds the chick from the nest. We kind of like forgot about that bet, but I think it's high time that I followed up on it. One thing about this helmeted hornbill female in particular is that I realized that from pictures that she's got red dots on the gullet pouch, right? So that was quite an interesting documentation that we have. Natural cavities, hollows for hornbills, they're not easy to come by. A lot of the large trees has already been removed, and species such as these, hornbills, I mean larger hornbill species, they need really large trees to nest in. This tree in particular is the Shorea pauciflora, and the nest is over 30 meters high. And because natural hollows are such a high commodity, that they are also needed by other hornbills. So here we have a female wrinkle hornbill coming to visit the nest. But the chick was still in there. Just outside the frame, the female hornbill was watching this wrinkle hornbill, and she chased it away. But threats to helmeted hornbills are not only other hornbills. In 2019, we had a little run-in with intruders in the forest. Of course, whenever we do work, whenever we go out for any excursion, we retain all the permits. But when we discovered there were indeed intruders in the forest, what we did was simply just inform those that inform the authorities, the closest authorities, inform the closest authorities, and these are the boots on the ground in Malaysia. And having witnessed them firsthand, the way they work, their dedication, and to protect nature and wildlife, I mean, they're so impressive that, to them, wildlife comes first. This is a PGA force with Operasi Khazanah, and they are there to protect nature and wildlife. I mean, this just goes to show that Malaysian government is doing amazing things to protect our vital species. So, with the intruders emerging in the forest, our female helmeted hornbill disappeared. We can't say for sure that she has been poached. We can't say for sure that she's died of natural causes. There simply is no photographic evidence of that. But what happened after that was something really amazing, that the seasons have kind of like changed in the forest, and the male stopped bringing back figs to feed the chick. I can't recall if it even brought back insects to feed the chick, and this chick was so shy. It was so skittish. Usually it's the female that stands very close to perched very close to the nest, or on the rim of the nest, urging, encouraging her young to come out, to take that leap, to join them in the world. But she was gone. And we didn't know what to do. But we had to go on and, you know, collecting data. Um, we had to carry on taking pictures, and this amazing thing happened that the male helmeted hornbill started bringing back stipules from fig trees. So it's basically the young shoots that are uh, closed, very closed up in the fig trees, and it just came back with multiple times a day, just feeding the chick stipules. So in a way, this is a new discovery to our hornbill research works here in Malaysia. Um, when the day finally came for the chick to fledge, it was not easy. It kept sticking its head out. Kept sticking himself out up to the shoulder levels. And as the good old saying goes, you know, an inch is a cinch, a yard is hard. And it was not easy for anything in the wild to be out discovering the world for the first time. Now imagine this: if you were inside of an eggshell, uh, like what I believe that the natural cavity in the nest would represent, you know, you'd have your feathers around, your tail feathers around, and your feet would be flat on the ground. Now, this bird has never taken flight before. We have witnessed it trying to stretch its wings out of the cavity, but um, to what extent of success did he manage to stretch his wings? We do not know. So, and mind you, this is over 30 meters from the ground. The chick eventually steps out to the ledge, just at the very rim, and our view is the cavity, the nesting cavity, and the canopy of trees. So we're covered by greens out there, and the chick fell. The whole team was we were stumped, we were flabbergasted, we were so shocked. We didn't know what to do, but fortunately everyone kept calm and everyone just kept quiet, and we slowly deployed smaller teams to go and look for the chick. And um, it was not easy. I reckon it was about 2 hours after that we found the chick, and it was rustling within the trees, and the dad came back to welcome him into the new world, saying, "Hey, congratulations, here's a fruit for you." Now, can you imagine that this particular species has got a very slow uh, breeding cycle. They breed maybe once every 2 years, and for this particular pair that we've been monitoring for the past 6 years, now with the absence of the female, that it's quite heartbreaking to see that these kind of things happen. But from the pictures and the visuals that we have documented, it just goes back to the world of science. It goes back to the world of research. It goes back to, you know, to scientific papers and documentations which is shared to all across the board, and everyone gets to study these birds and all these kind of species from these kind of publications. Uh, Ultimately, not, you know, all is well because we're super ecstatic that the chick survived, and I'll just leave you with the slide.
Thank is thank you, Sanjay. That's an absolutely beautiful picture. We've been taking down the names of those who've been having a wonderful time drawing. So and we'll decide what we'll do after this. It's not very nice to start drawing in front of on something that the presenter is presenting. So we do appreciate if this rude behavior is stopped. It annoys the others as well. All right. Can I start, Sanjay?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay. So the first question, oh, there's some very long ones as well.
Okay.
Do you, this is a short one. So do you use camera traps too to capture animals, sometimes nocturnal animals?
Okay, camera traps often used to capture all kinds of animals, even nocturnal animals. And for the Hornbill project in particular, sometimes when a nest box goes up, artificial nest box goes up, they do install a camera trap and leave it there for about 3 months to try and document what kind of hornbill species comes to visit their nests. But me particularly, I've not done camera trapping myself for my own documentation, simply because I just got too much gear to carry now. This is so much equipment already, and to bring more, I mean, it's not that I mind it. I would love to do that, and but it's certainly one of the plans for the future.
Okay.
Just need to bring more friends along.
Yeah, I'm looking at that equipment and I'm wondering how you carry it.
It's heavy. It's heavy. My backpack alone is about 14 kilos.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Next question. I'm a fan of your work, have seen your hornbill images from Instagram. It must be challenging to document birds' hornbill images as they are so high up, may fly away from your cameras. How did you take such pictures? Secondly, what are some basics to wildlife photography? Maybe some tips, share some tips or equipment that you require.
Okay. I'll answer the first one first, and it actually requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of hard work. You need to be mentally and physically prepared. And I did mention not everything goes your way all the time, and sometimes, you know, after a long excursion, you come back and you go like, I didn't really get a shot that I want. But a tip for you is that, you know, you've done the research and you're collaborating with the NGO in which you would have had so many coffee sessions, understanding not only how they work, but also the species that they work with, you know. So have that visual already in your mind. You need to know the pictures even before you go out and take them. That is part of the research as wildlife photographer or any photographer. Even if you're a photojournalist, you need to know the pictures that you're going to bring back before you even go out, even if it's an assignment at a place that you've never been before, because you have done so much of consultation with NGOs that you're going to work with. You understand the species and you know what's going to come back. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of mental, it's a lot of physical challenges. But that is one thing you'll practice. And I have to practice being disappointed too. We're humans, come on, being disappointed too. The second one, some tips and some tips and tricks. Oh my goodness, I can go on days with this. But I did mention a couple of tips at the very beginning of the slides, is to try to photograph the wildlife species near you. One very important thing is to know your equipment in and out, and to know how they perform in different conditions. And very important is to know the species that you're working with. A great place to practice is basically how I grew up. Was I was photographing in the National Zoo and the zoos around the countries. So I get to practice there. So if you need a place to practice. Just go out there, go to the zoo. In a way, you're supporting them, and you get to practice your photography as well. On other tips and tricks, I would have to save that for another session because I think I have to leave some room for more questions. But thank you for the questions, though.
Okay. Next question. What are the challenges when doing this kind of work?
Although we go in with the whole mission and that visual in mind, the norm is to expect the unexpected. Some of the main challenges could be physical. For example, you can get infections, you can get injured, you can experience fatigue, you can experience heat stroke if you're working on boats for days in and out. Some other challenges would be natural factors such as weather. You could be in the forest and there could be a storm. Now, this is very dangerous because branches could fall on you, right? Also, depending on the terrain that you have secured yourself in, you could be on a terrain which is close to a river that you could experience flash floods. You could be in a terrain that's filled with limestone that you could slip and fall. So that is the weather factor. So yeah, there are so much more other challenges. There could be challenges where you are not aware of your surrounding and there is a deadly snake nearby. You just need to be very well aware of your surroundings. That's about it. Yeah.
Yeah. What is your most prized work? Photo or video you captured? Love your work, by the way. Your work.
I honestly don't think I can answer this one. I'm very critical about my work, and I feel that my works are not good enough. So I'm not too sure how to answer this one, but I am very sure that every time I go out, I come back as a new person, with new motivation, with new understanding of the natural environment, and with newfound respect with the NGOs and the communities that we work with, because they are just simply so amazing. And these are the worthy heroes that need to be saluted. People that go out there day in and day out, spending over 20 years with orangutans, day in and day out, going looking for other kinds of primates, doing river surveys, water samplings, studying elephants, trying to conserve the pangolins, so on and so forth. These are the worthy heroes. I cannot tell you the images that I'm most proud of, but I can tell you that the experience that I fulfill, and I'm most proud of the local communities and those that support these local communities, the NGOs, the government departments. They just are doing amazing work. Although we don't see it, they are really there because I've witnessed it firsthand. I'm sorry I can't answer you about the picture though.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it comes out in your voice, the way, how passionate you are as well, Sanjit. Have you experienced any tense moments, such as meeting wild animals eye to eye?
Okay, let's start with animals. Yes, there has been a couple of tense moments. There was once that we were working somewhere in Borneo, and there's two little rocks as though that we needed to cross, and one foot goes before the other, left foot, right foot, then it's called walking. And so my wildlife ranger, my warden, he walked before me, and next thing I knew that it just looked a bit odd because we've walked through this path so many times. Something looked really odd, and this vine was actually is either a spitting or monocle cobra. I'm not too sure which one is in Borneo. Is either one of that. So I stopped dead in my tracks, and I called out to this guy in front of me, and next thing I knew is that the snake is just looking at us, and it just calmly moved away. Fortunately, the snake. There has been incidences with elephants. There's been incidences with tigers, but these are the incidences that I do not mind at all, because I think that I'm in a safe enough position to know how to react and know how to conduct not only myself, but if there's a group with me, to get everyone to safety in a very, very calm manner. And there are so many ways to do it depending on what you're facing at the same time. My most intense moments are actually those that we are in not a control with. And I'm sad to say that those that we are not in control of are other people in the forest. These are intruders, and they come in with weapons. And there's been 2 times in my life that we have faced these kind of situations. It's not easy negotiating with people with weapons, but I'm still here, so I'm fortunate for that. Yeah.
And you've actually answered your next question. Have you met animal poachers?
All right.
Next one. How heavy are your equipments each time you travel in the field? Tripods, lenses, batteries.
Okay. One of the lenses, the heaviest lens that I carry along with me, and I have to admit, I can't do it on my own. And sometimes I need to hire porters. The team needs to hire porters. We need to find a little bit of cash that we did not budget for the expedition funding, because after 2 or 3 days, my entire shoulder is all swollen up, and it's just black and it's just bruised everywhere. That lens alone is 5.2 kilos, and we of course we put other equipment in that bag that could weigh anywhere between 14 to 16 kilos, just one backpack. So they are really heavy, and they get heavier by the day.
Yeah, and when you look at the equipment, I dare not even ask you how much they cost.
All right. Well, you can, but since you mentioned it, I read somewhere that wildlife photography is one of the most expensive types of photographies in the world. Each piece of equipment is so high end. It's so premier. We call them prime equipment. A camera body is anywhere between 20 to 35,000 ringgit, and it only comes with a battery. No lenses, no memory cards, nothing. Right now, you need a lens that could cost another 60 grand. So at any time we are carrying a minimum of 120,000 into the forest. Please don't rob me. All my camera gear is very old and need to be upgraded. But it gets the work done. You need this kind of equipment. You need high-end equipment to get the results that are needed for the world of conservation. Yeah. So camera equipment not only is heavy, it's costly, and it goes the mile for you in providing this vital information that will help the world of conservation.
Okay. And I think you've inspired everyone, and they would like to know, is it possible to see these birds in our neighborhood, kawasan perumahan?
Hornbills, yes. Hornbills, yes. Especially the oriental pied hornbill. They are very well adaptable. I think one of the closest places from Kuala Lumpur you can go to is perhaps Kuala Selangor. If you're lucky, you'll see the oriental pied hornbills there. If you're further up north in the Ipoh region, you can go to the Taiping Lake Gardens. If I'm not mistaken, there's a pair there. And of course to Pangko and Pangko Laut. Of course to Langkawi as well if you're in the Kedah region. Even in Teluk Intan, you just park the car on the road. If you're lucky enough, you will be able to see oriental pied hornbill somewhere. But if you are in a hurry, but of course with wildlife, there's no guarantee. One of my favorite places to go to is Langkawi. That if you're very lucky, you can see 3 hornbill species in a day and even photograph them very well. If your neighborhood is somewhere in Sabah, go to the Kinabatangan. It's one of the strongholds in Malaysia for hornbills. And you can easily see oriental pied hornbills even in the village areas. So yes, there are a lot of places that you can see them. There is a oriental pied hornbill reported recently somewhere in Bangsa. So yeah, you can. However, the larger species are very difficult to spot in the city.
Okay. There's also one resident oriental pied hornbill at the Taman Rimba Kiara. And there's even, and someone's written a story about it as well. Next question. Is there a trick to determine the gender of great hornbills based on their eye colors? Also, that's the first question. Do you want to answer that first?
Yes. Let me answer that first. Very simple. The male has got fully red eyes. The female has got a whitish bluish pouch around the eye. So the one way to distinguish male from female hornbills of the great hornbill is from the colorization of their eyes.
Okay. Also, do hornbills make a special coating around the nest cavities once they found it?
Okay, special coating. Okay, when the hornbills are ready to nest, what they do is that the females go into the nest and they tend to seal themselves in. So in a way, this is kind of like a special coating, and they seal themselves in so much that there's only enough room for the tip of the beaks to come out just to receive food. I can't imagine the other conditions inside that, there's just a small window of light. So this special coating is actually the sealing material that they have used to seal the nest for the female to lay her eggs safely. This special coating could have been made from fruits, shells of insects, from their feces, mixed with mud. The fruits can include a lot of fig fruits as well, and it actually becomes really solid. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The next question, you still have a lot. When animals make warning calls, do you follow the call to capture a photo of the animal, or do you back away, especially when they are, for example, warning their family about your presence?
Was it specified what kind of animals, or is it just general?
Just general, yeah.
Okay. Depends on the type of animals. From my experience, I've encountered warning calls from orangutans. And orangutans, when they do a squeezing sound, kind of like a squeaky sound, it's best for you to back off. If you do not back off, they might resort to breaking branches and throwing to you. When they resort to doing that, you're actually stressing out the wildlife species, which is not fair to them. So it's best for you to back off. For birds, we have encountered some warning calls from birds, whether it's smaller birds or larger hornbill species. So what I've tried to do is I try to stay as still as possible without making any sound, because it's very easy for birds to escape. So it really depends on the type of species. If you're looking at elephants and you look at the body language of elephants, how is their tail, how is their ears, how is their trunk at that particular time, you will know not to get close or to move further away. So in a way that you can communicate with animals just by listening and watching. But depending on species, because your safety and their safety is at concern, you need to be very, very careful on what you do next.
Okay.
I hope I've answered that question.
Yes. I would say be careful when you're in the jungle.
Always, never go in alone.
Yes. And she says, yes, thank you. You have answered her question.
Most welcome.
Do hornbills choose the same nest for breeding every time?
Yes, they do. Because hornbills have different breeding seasons depending on species, so some of them might even share the same nest. So as long as the tree is still there, they would come back to nest. Occasionally, sometimes this nest might be taken over by a monitor lizard or something, but they have their own way of dealing with unruly tenants in their neighborhood.
Yeah, okay. We must learn from you what they do.
I
All
learned
right.
from them. I learned from the hornbills themselves and
Yeah.
the experts in the field.
Yes. And a nice comment. Now I have an interest in animals from today's webinar. So that's really nice to hear.
Thank you. And bring a camera along.
What was your worst timing moment?
Worst timing moment. Worst timing moment was the rainy season, really. Everything was muddy, everything was slippery. We were hiking up hills. We had to cross rivers, swollen rivers on boats. The rainy season was one of the most tiring and most challenging ones. But as a wildlife photographer, I'm always curious about what do these animals do in the rain. So I really want to go out there and document that. But if this is what I need to go through to get that pictures, I would. Because if I do discover something, it goes back to the NGOs that are studying these animals, and they get to benefit, and in a way society gets to benefit from learning from all these NGOs, and Malaysia gets to benefit in a whole.
Great. And we don't doubt your passion, Sanjit, to go out first of all, to go out in the jungle, and then when it's raining, it's really, really dangerous.
But we need to understand that I'm not going out there alone. I'm going out there in collaboration with NGOs on their expeditions.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think you are going alone. I wouldn't recommend it. And this actually comes to the next question. You're talking about swollen rivers and stuff. If you accidentally fall into the river, will you save your camera first?
Well, oh my goodness, hold on. Give me a minute. It just got dark in here. Would I save my camera first? I think that's a sign my camera didn't want the question to be answered. Maybe it's saying yes. Would I save the camera first? Actually, the camera is in a Pelican case, so it will float. Yeah. So I would save myself first, and definitely everyone who needs to be saved first. The equipment can be replaced. We can't. Yeah, the great minds that are doing all this conservation work, they can't be replaced. A camera can come back later.
All right. And that's the last question, actually.
Oh, wow.
Are there any more questions for Pelv? Because unfortunately, just now, there was a slight problem and the chat was disabled. So if anyone has a question for Pelf, you can ask it now. And while we're waiting, could I take photos? Could everyone turn on their camera so that I can take photos? Are we ready? Okay, I'm going to take photos. All right, I'll start now. Thank you very much, everyone. First photo. Okay, the next photo. Thank you, everyone. And I think it's been a really good session today. I think we've all learned a lot about the tuntun as well as wildlife photography. And Pelf, are you there? Would you like to say a few words before we wrap up?
I'm here.
Yes.
I'm still here.
Yes. We are waiting for you.
Well, thanks, Leela and Tris, for inviting me on this session. Don't really have anything to add because I've already put everything into the slides. Takut lupa mah.
Thank you. And how about you, Sanjit?
Well, thank you all so much for joining us on this Friday night. We really appreciate you, each and every one of you, for giving your time and just listening to us tell our stories and what we do. And we hope that you can find a way to contribute back to nature.
Okay. So today we actually added another dimension to what is so important in the field. We learned about conservation, we learned about education, but today we also learned about documentation. Because if you don't have people like Sanjit going around and documenting the wildlife that we have, the jungle scenes that we have, we will not have a record of the beautiful diversity in this country. And that's very important because when you need to convince people to protect the forests, to conserve our forests and our rivers, we need that documentation. And photos, I know they say 1,000 words, but to me, I think they are more valuable than that. They're worth more than 1,000,000 words. You know, some of the photos that Sanjit took today is so powerful, and it really shows the need for us to protect our natural resources. So with that, we like to end today's session, but we'll have another session on the 16th of March, and it's all about elephants, both in Peninsular Malaysia and in Sabah. So you're going to see our Sabah, what's so special about our Sabah elephants, as well as our Asian elephants in Peninsular Malaysia. They're majestic creatures, and why are they so important to the ecosystem as well? So we hope that you all can join us again next Tuesday at the same time, and we look forward to the webinar. And I honestly thank you so much, Pelf. I learned so much about turtles today, and I'm really determined to come up and see your work. And I'm not sure I'll join you, Sanjit, because it means going into the jungle.
Oh, we can go for a leisurely one.
Yeah. Okay. So
or you can come over when Sanjit comes over.
Yes, maybe that's better.
Deal.
Yeah. All right. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you.
And show of hands for both our speakers. Thank you. Right. And see you all again. Good night.
Yes.
Bye.
Good night. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Sanjit.
Well, someone
Good
wants to
night.
be, someone wants to be a biologist now. So look at how good the two of you have been. Right.
Yay. Yay.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.